Welcome to this edition of Tuesday Talks with Twyla. First of all, I want to give a quick life update. I was absent last week, so if you were looking for a video last week and looking for the intentional thought creation that we're going to talk about today, I had shoulder surgery last Monday, and so I had all intentions of recording my Tuesday Talks early before I had surgery, and that didn't happen. And of course, I just thought, I'll be feeling great Tuesday after major surgery, and that wasn't the case. And so I was going to bring it to you later in the week, and every day was just a struggle. So I apologize. There's a week missing, but today we are back at it and picking up where we left off. And shoulder surgery is going okay. I've got some mobility coming back and quite a bit of pain just as everything heals. They just went in and scoped and cleaned it all up from surgery last year. So just getting through that and reminding myself that I had major surgery and it's okay to rest and slow down and all the things. So that is the quick life update. So if you've been following along 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, because we missed last week, we talked about the thought audit. And then we talked about what to do after you have completed your thought audit. And so 2 weeks ago, we talked about evaluation and decision making around the thoughts. And once you kind of have your thought audit, then you just take a look at it, right? So this week, as I mentioned, we're going to talk about intentional thought creation. So this is just, we mentioned last week that once you make decisions around your thoughts, you get to decide what you keep and maybe what you want to change. And I wanted to bring this week a more in-depth look at what does intentional thought creation look like, because this can be challenging. But I want to bring up or revisit a couple of concepts that I talked about in the last two videos that as soon as you turn your perspective into the watcher, you have changed, right? You have created the awareness, you've turned your perspective, you've created that separation between you and your thoughts. And this is huge. So don't gloss over, like, there's all these steps and, all these different things to do, right? Like, once you go through this entire process, you'll realize I'm breaking it down into pieces so that it's manageable for you. It's easy to jump in and just do one nugget, get a flavor for what like the coaching environment is. But once you go through the complete process and you teach yourself how to do this, then you can do it quickly, seamlessly, do it on repeat, and you'll want to, right? Because our brains are designed to default to the survival mechanism. And that's to repeat what it knows. That's to regenerate thoughts that you've always been thinking. Your could be childhood programming. It could be, something that you've experienced or something that is just how, I often will have my clients say, like, that's just how I am. That's just who I am, right? And so this is the ability to break out of that. Just because that's how you are now doesn't mean that's how you have to be or how you have to stay, right? So it's great awareness to, if you make statements like that about yourself, that that's just who I am or that's just how I am, know that that's how you are now. And you always have the ability to change that. And, I'll get a little bit of pushback sometimes. It's like, yeah, that's great, but yeah, I realize I can just change the thought, but how easy is that? Like, that's just not that easy to do. I've been thinking this way for a very long time. And the examples that I've used as I've done this work recently was just that constant, I have too much to do. I have so much to do. I can't get it all done. What am I forgetting? Like that story of overwhelm and like this massive amount of work to do. I was just carrying around all day, every day, even though it wasn't true, even though that wasn't my circumstance, right? And a lot of those kind of thoughts, the ones we wake up with in the morning, the ones we carry with us all day long, can be challenging to change, but not impossible. And the beauty of this is once you do it, even one time, you'll experience that, wow, this is possible for me. And the change that you experience is what will motivate you to want to do this work again, right? And just know that likely your brain's going to revert at times, or you're going to, if you've listened to any of the pick up a penny or pick up a thought, like we can sometimes just attach to something that isn't ours. It's a thought or a concept, and we, for whatever reason, like picking up a penny and keeping it, we just attach to it. We just keep it for ourselves. We take it on for ourselves, and we start thinking that thought without maybe even realizing it or realizing the impact of it. So just know that all of this is to say that however you are, whoever you are, all of this can change. And so the last two steps has put us into that watcher mode, has changed our perspective so we can take a look at what our mind is doing. Because here's the thing, if we don't direct our mind, if we don't tell our brain what to focus on, it doesn't know. What it knows is the past. What it knows is the programming. What it knows is what's common, familiar, what it's been doing all day, every day in the past. So it's just going to keep doing that because that's what it knows to do. But when you direct your brain and you focus your thoughts and you're intentional about it, it does what you tell it to do. It's your brain. So it will do what you ask. It will answer the questions if you ask them. It will go in the direction that you direct it. But if not, then it definitely has some default programming just sitting there waiting that it'll go back to, right? Or you'll pick up something new that maybe isn't serving you. So you've done the thought audit, you've made some decisions around the thoughts that you've discovered. And I want to take this one step further before we get into the thought creation. So there's two other pieces to this besides just your thoughts create your feelings. And I want to make sure we talk about this right now. And then there's another step that we don't want to skip over before we go into intentional thought creation. So I plan to bring these two subjects back to talk about in depth each one because they are so important. So the first one is that our thoughts create our feelings. And what happens from there is everything that we do or don't do is based on how we're feeling. We are emotionally driven. That's what drives all of our actions in our life or inactions, right? So if you're thinking thoughts that, keep you sitting on the couch eating Cheetos and watching Netflix instead of taking action towards goals or being proactive or doing things, all of that is being driven by your feelings. So when you take a look at in your thought audit and the review of what the thoughts that you're thinking and the evaluation and decisions, you've got a thought feeling combination. So those thoughts create those feelings. And the way we show up, what we do in our life is based on how we're feeling. So I want you to take the time to take that thought feeling combination that you found and take it those next steps further. What do I do when I feel that way? How am I showing up to my life? What do I do or not do? What are the actions I'm taking from that thought feeling combination? And complete that. And the last piece of that is that creates the results I have in my life. So, what is that thought, feeling, action, and result? What are all four of those components? And know that, like, the direct correlation is your thoughts create your results because that's what creates your feelings and that's what drives your actions. And so, the direct link is whatever I'm thinking creates the results I have in my life. And you can see how that plays out in how are you feeling when you think that way, and then how are you acting or behaving, and then these are the results I have because of these things. Knowing that they're all optional. They can be all intentional, they can be decided upon, they can be directed, or they can be default mode, right? I wake up thinking that I have so much to do and I'm so overwhelmed and I can't get it all done. And then, I feel stress and overwhelm. And then my actions are not that I get it all done, right? My thought is that I can't get it all done. And my result is I don't get it all done, right? And even if that thought, we talked about is true that I have so much to get done that I can't get it all done, that thought just creates me not really getting very much at all done or nothing done. And so I don't show up as motivated to get things done when I'm already telling myself I can't get it all done, right? And so when I change that thought to, I can get these three things done today, the result is I get three things done today. So that thought has a, excuse me, direct correlation to that result. And when we can see that for ourselves, that's where we create all of that change in our life. So just changing the thought, having our intentional thought creation that we're going to do today isn't just that you're going to feel differently, right? You're going to experience life differently because you're going to show up differently. Your actions and behaviors will be different, and your results will be different. They're going to correlate to the thoughts that you've chosen. So we want to make sure that we understand all of that relationship and all of those components in what's happening from the thought audit and the evaluation step. And the other piece of this is we're deciding about the thoughts. And I think I mentioned this a little bit in the last video, but we're not trying to thought swap or not fully understand and acknowledge the thoughts that we are having now, right? So when I discover that I wake up in the morning with all of these thoughts of, I can't do all this, I have so much to do, and have all of this overwhelm, it is not my goal. And this, I was doing this and it wasn't working. I was wanting to just, I didn't want to feel that way anymore. So I wanted to change my thoughts. So I had created a different feeling. But I wasn't taking the time to really go through when I think this thought, I feel this way, and I behave this way, which was I don't get anything done. I don't even try to get anything done. I've already convinced myself that I can't get it all done, so I just don't even try, right? I wasn't trying, I wasn't doing anything. And the results that I had in my life was I wasn't getting anything done. It wasn't I wasn't getting it all done, like, oh, I got 9 out of 10 done. No, I got 0 out of 10 done. And for the most part, most days were very unproductive when that was the thought that was playing from morning until night. Makes sense, right? I'm not going to show up with motivation and energy to do things if my brain is telling me you can't get it all done anyways. You can't do it. You have too much to do. You don't have enough time, right? And so I would waste all the time I did have. I wasn't productive. I wasn't organized. I didn't have to-do lists. I didn't have priorities, right? I wasted the time away because I can't get it all done anyways. I don't have enough time. And so we want to make sure that we don't just jump from the thought that we discovered in the thought audit to our intentional thought creation and picking our thought and then just glossing over this very important step. And what this looks like is just taking the time to allow, basically for me, that emotion of overwhelm, that stress, that overwhelm, that anxiety that I can't get it all done, that I have too much to do, there isn't enough time, like all of the feelings and emotions that came up from that thinking, I needed to sit with that. I needed to allow it instead of avoiding it, which is what I was really doing, right? When I was sitting on the couch, it wasn't like I was working through how I was feeling, right? I was distracting myself away from the emotion, avoiding how I was feeling, right? I wasn't creating new productive thoughts, and I wasn't like, just sitting there feeling overwhelmed, right? Like and this is one of them that I think is very challenging because you can feel stress in your body, right? Like once it gets in there and you can just carry that. And I was doing that as well. So the physical side of it, I was having that. But the I wasn't just sitting on the couch feeling, overwhelmed. I just knew I wasn't productive. I wasn't getting things done. I was avoiding and distracting from all of it, over consuming courses, reading things that just wasn't moving the needle, wasn't getting things done, anything to just busy my time and avoid what my brain and my emotions were telling me. And that was the behaviors that I was doing. And that's the key piece here is the actions that you're taking. Most of the time, what we're doing is reacting or avoiding, right? Because we don't want to feel that negative emotion. And so we're either it's there and we're just reacting, or we're avoiding, suppressing, right? We're trying to, like in my case, I was trying to pretend it wasn't there, act like it wasn't there. I was distracting myself away from all of it. And that whole scenario never changed until I paused and really got clear about what was happening. I sat down and did the awareness step. I did the thought download. I did the thought audit, and I found all the information. And then I just got curious about it. Like, because like I said, my circumstance had changed and yet I was still carrying this story. So I just got very curious. I didn't beat myself up. I had no judgment or opinions about it. I just got curious about, oh, this is interesting. I'm still telling myself this story. I'm still carrying this monkey, even though I left that organization, right? I still am experiencing all of this. I am causing this. My circumstance is not causing this. My mind, my thoughts, my feelings are causing all of this, right? And so just allowing that to be there, not finding it and being like, oh, this is wrong. I can't have this. I don't want this. And like trying to jump to the next thing. It just won't work. And it didn't for me either, right? Like what I was doing was, I don't want to feel this way. So I was trying to change the thought. And so when the thoughts would come up, I would just redirect them. And I would just be like, okay, I want to think this instead. Because I knew if I thought something different, I would feel something different in the moment, right? And that's what happens. But then the other stuff just keeps coming back because I was not resolving it. I was just skipping over it. And so you have to have that moment of when you go through that evaluation step, you want to allow, acknowledge, accept this is where I'm at right now. Right? And this is okay. This overwhelm isn't going to kill me. And in the moment, this is the thing, like just like we said, like as soon as you change the perspective, right? You've now changed where you're not thinking the thought, you're thinking about the thought. And that alone is massive change. And also, when you recognize that this is how I feel in my body, because I'm thinking that thought, this is how I'm feeling, and you just allow it and have acceptance for it, you're like, yeah, this sucks. But also, I can change it. I don't have to stay here. I understand why it's here because I've just done all of this thought work. I've just done the thought audit. I've just done the evaluation. I've looked at all of it. I understand what's happening here and I'm feeling this emotion, and that's okay. And I want to do something different, right? I want to create different thoughts so I create a different experience in my life. I want to create a different result. And so once we've gone through all of that, you've done your thought audit, you've done your evaluation, and you've just allowed and accepted what's going on. Now we want to do some intentional thought creation, right? And so there's a couple of ways that you can do this. I know sometimes this can be very challenging. And if you're just like listening or watching these and you're not actually doing the work, one of the things that you might be thinking is, I feel like I don't have control of my thoughts. And if that comes to mind, the reason you're feeling or thinking that way is because you haven't become aware of what you're thinking. So it does feel like it's happening to you, right? Your thoughts and feelings can feel like they're happening to you, but they're not. So know that they're not. And that awareness step, that first thought audit step, is where you shift that perspective. And that's where you gain all of the control. And those exercises that I gave you were we sit down and do a thought audit or we do intermittent check-ins. And when you start to eavesdrop on your mind, that is when you realize you are not your thoughts. You are separate from your thoughts, right? Because as soon as you shift that perspective, you're thinking about your thoughts, you have that space. You are not your thinking. That's not who you are, right? And so like when my clients tell me, well, that's just who I am. That's just how I am right now. But when you take this shift and you've turned the perspective, that changes, right? And so now that's not just who you are, how you are, because now you're the watcher, you're the eavesdropper, you're getting curious about what your brain is thinking, and then you have agency over it. Because if we don't know what the problem is, we can't solve it. So that awareness step is just so significant. And that's where you'll start feeling like you have control over all of this, which you do, you always do. And we want you to feel that way. We want you to feel empowered. We want you to understand how to do this work to take control, right? So if you're ready to create your new intentional thoughts, there's a few ways to do this. You might just know, right? Like exactly what you want to be thinking. And you might think you have no idea where to start, right? And so for me, like I had mentioned in my example where I was thinking that family of thoughts, I don't have enough time, I have too much to do, I can't get it all done. And I wanted to take a look at what do I want to be thinking? How do I want to be feeling? I don't want to feel this overwhelm, this monkey on my back, like this constant stress. I didn't want to feel that way anymore. And I wanted to feel calm. I wanted to feel like I had plenty of time. I wanted to feel in control of my schedule. And I wanted to just feel like I was organized and knew what needed to be done. And that was my new desire. So I knew exactly what that was. And I started with, how do I want to feel? Right? Because that was what was driving me was I didn't want to feel that way anymore. And I knew that there was a physical stress component, right? You hear about the impact of physical stress on the body, right? And so I just knew that like I want out of this. I want peace. I want calm. I want to feel like I'm in control, that I'm organized, that I know what to do, right? I want to be leading my life, not just like succumb to this monkey on my back and just surviving all day. And so that's where I started. And so that's kind of what I was telling myself, right? I mean, that's kind of a thought feeling right there. If I have the calm and the peace, but I wanted to think, I can do this. I can get these three things done today. I can prioritize and organize my time. Like these are just thoughts that just made sense for where I wanted to move. And for the most part, I don't know if they're complete opposite, but they're in stark contrast, right? And so that might be a place to start. If you find that your thought is here and you want to be there, it might be just the complete opposite, right? And so then that's your new thought. But here's the key couple of things about your new thoughts. They have to be believable and they have to make you feel good. And sometimes we find thoughts that we think are good, but they don't make us feel good. And so that's not going to work. You have to find the ones that do both. They are believable and they have to feel good. So here's an example of something that might not. So, a couple of examples with like if you're going through some like either weight loss journey or healthy eating or something to do with like your body or where you're at physically. You might be telling yourself that you're fat, and when you go through and find your thought, feeling, and actions, and you're telling yourself that you're fat, you're probably overeating, which is interesting, right? So this like just going through this process can just be very revealing. Because if you're already telling yourself you're fat, that's not driving you to not eat or to eat less or to eat more healthy, right? And so it seems confusing, right? But if we think we're fat and then we eat, right? And we understand that dynamic, and then what is the result is we're still fat. And so you might not be able to go from I'm fat or I hate my body to I love my body or I'm not fat at all. Right? It's too far of a leap and it's not believable and it doesn't feel good because it's not true and it doesn't feel true, right? And so you might have to find an in between. Find some, like we talked about, some ladder thoughts or some smaller steps towards the direction that you're going. And so if it's something like I can't stop eating or all I want to do is eat or all I think about is food. And so then you could find, okay, where are some times when I don't think about food? I don't think about food every minute of the day, right? I think about food only when I'm hungry. I think about food when I'm meal prepping, right? Like you can see how you can find some ladder thoughts that will get you closer to neutral. We're heading towards positive, right? But we just can't always swing that pendulum to the opposite of whatever the thought is that we're thinking that's not serving us. And so you just you have to figure this out for yourself, but if you're, I want to say like trying on thoughts when you're trying to figure out how, what thoughts you want to create, you just have to make sure that they're believable. And sometimes we're going to do some work as we get towards the end of the year about like setting goals. And sometimes those goals are impossible goals or giant goals, big goals, and they're impossible. And it's hard for us to believe it. And we want to believe it because we want them goals to come true. And so there's work to do there to work on believing things, right? And that just takes practice, right? So a belief is just a thought that you've been thinking and you believe is true. You've thought it a lot, you've thought it enough that you believe that it's true, right? Like I was believing this story that I was telling myself that I don't have enough time and I have too much to do and that wasn't actually true. It felt true. It was believable. I was believing it because I was telling myself that even after I had left my job and controlled my entire schedule. And so the believable piece, you can get there even if you don't believe it, right? And so if you're like, I hate my body, and then you go to, I have a body, and then you can be like, let's find evidence for all the ways that my body supports me as opposed to works against me or doesn't do what I want it to do. And, that might be just like losing weight quickly, but what can I do, right? I can go for a bike ride with my kids. I can walk around the block. I can, what are all the things my body can do? Like, when we start getting curious and we start asking all these questions, our brain's going to answer those questions. It's going to find evidence for the things that you focus on. Great news, right? Because if you don't focus your brain, it just goes back to the old programming, all the stuff that's just in there unconsciously playing on repeat. And so when you direct it and you start asking these questions and you start getting curious about either the truth of the thoughts you're telling yourself now, or the believability or the ability to start to believe some new things, right? We start getting curious and we start asking questions and we start figuring out like, yeah, I can think this. Like this feels good. I can think this instead. I want to think this instead, right? And then we have to practice, right? And we have to make it an intentional process. So here's another way to um take like if you want to take the thought, like if you're struggling to come up with a new thought, you can do modifiers on your existing thought, and this can kind of help you find some of those bridge thoughts that will get you away from your very negative thinking and closer to the positive. So one there's some that you can put on the beginning of the thought, and I just love these because there's times where we just don't feel like the thought is just a thought. And like I told you, I was telling myself this story like it was the news. I believed it. I thought it was true. I was telling myself it like it was true. I wasn't evaluating it, questioning it, any of that. I just was believing it like it was the news. And so this first one, I think, is just, it's so simple and yet it's everything. So you add to the front of the thought, I'm just thinking the thought. I have too much to do. I'm just thinking the thought, I can't get it all done. And what it does is it creates that recognition that it's just a thought. It's not my circumstance, it's not true, but I'm just thinking the thought, I have too much to do. I'm just thinking the thought, I can't get it all done. I'm just thinking the thought, I don't have enough time, right? And so it validates that that's a thought. It's just a thought. And then you can, start playing around with these. So another one is I might be wrong about. I might be wrong about there's not enough time to get it all done. I might be wrong about there's too much stuff to do, right? It just wiggles it loose a little. I might be wrong about my body not being able to change. I might be wrong about not being able to lose weight. I might be wrong about stopping overeating, right? You might be wrong about it. It just wiggles it loose just a tiny bit. Another one is to add at the end, and that's okay. So if it's something that like I have too much to do and that's okay. Right? Like my list of things that need to get done is what it is. And so I have too much to do and that's okay. just eases it up a little bit. Like it's okay. And this is the allowance part, right? So when you're going through that original thought feeling combination and you're just allowing that, like this is a great way to get there is this is how I'm thinking and feeling, and that's okay. Because it is okay. It's happening right now. And our purpose here is to allow and acknowledge that so that we can move through it, right? So we can move past it, so we can create our new thoughts and we can create a different experience. And it's okay. The worst that's happening is this emotion, this vibration in my body. And I'm surviving that. I'm doing it right now as I'm revealing all of this information to myself. And it's okay. I can do this, right? So as you start doing the new thought, maybe trying them on or exploring, deciding kind of, trying to find what some new thoughts would be that you want to think. Here's a couple that I think are great ways to maybe soften that if this is challenging work for you. Maybe dip your toe in a little bit, or maybe just, try it on, see how it feels. And so, especially if it's something that you feel like, where you wanting to go is a significant leap, right? If the inversion, the opposite of your original thought is just a stretch, it's not believable, it doesn't feel good. So there's this piece. So I'm open to the idea that I can lose 100 pounds. I'm open to the idea that I control my schedule. I'm open to the idea that I have plenty of time. I'm open to the idea, and then you fill in your new thought idea. Because if it's something where you just, that it's not believable, but is it believable that you're open to the idea? Right? Just wiggles it loose a little bit. Like it's everything. These tiny shifts are what's going to accumulate to your massive change. And it's really just that simple. Because when you think that, you feel differently than what you're thinking when I can't get it all done. There's not enough time, right? I'm open to the idea that I have plenty of time. And I am, right? Like, and that feels good. It's believable and it feels good. It feels like possibility. It feels like it's available, right? The next one is it's possible that. It's possible that I have enough time. It's possible that I could get everything done, right? That feels so different. It just, it feels calm. It feels peaceful. It's believable and it feels good, right? And then the last one is I will someday, right? I will someday get it all done. Yeah, that's believable. Someday. I don't say which day. I don't say how long. I just am open to I will someday. I will someday lose 100 pounds. I will someday love my body, right? It's believable and it feels good. And it's just a different way to shift that perspective. So good. So here's the other thing. I just heard this today and I just thought this was like, it's an amazing way to take a look at how our brain works. And I didn't write down who this was quoted from. I got it from my coach. But the topic is that imagination. So we talked about last time, like tapping into our imagination, if we're like having a hard time coming up with like what we want to be thinking or what we want in life, all of that stuff. And I, encourage you to tap into your imagination, something that we haven't done probably since we were young, right? We just don't do this very much. But imagination can be used for anxiety or creativity. I love this because your imagination is where you're just, right? You're creating whatever in your mind. And so you're either creating something that causes worry and anxiety, or you're creating something that's creative and productive, right? The brain just creates. And it's creating something that didn't exist before. Imagination is the creation of, right? Imaginary ideas. It's these images in our mind. It's this, where we imagine things. And basically it can be used for good or bad, right? Because when we have worry and anxiety, we're imagining something might happen or something could happen. And so we're worrying about something before it actually happens. And You can also use your imagination for creativity and productivity and creating something good and positive and new in your life. It it's just yes, right? Like that's what imagination is. That's exactly what it is. And we get to choose, right? So let's choose intentionally. Let's choose purposefully, right? Okay. So after you've done your thought creation, you've gone through this work and you've figured out either ladder thoughts or you're still exploring with thoughts. The part of this where we have the intentional thought creation, that's where you come up with a new thought. But then to get the change in our life, we have to practice it, right? We have to be intentional about it. We have to focus our mind. We have to direct our brain. And when we do that, our brain and our mind and what we're doing all focuses on that new thought. Because if we don't, our brain just reverts to the old programming. It's excuse me, what it's always thought before. And so you'll just go back to that. But when you focus it, when you're intentional about it, you've done intentional thought creation, so you've come up with your intentional thoughts. Now you have to practice. And what that looks like is different for everyone. It might be that you write it at the top of your journal and it's the first thing that you read in the morning when you journal. You put it on a sticky note by your bed, so you're reading it and you're putting it a sticky note on your mirror. Like I love those ideas. I love the sticky notes on the mirrors and in strategic places, right? Like I don't love it next to my bed because I feel like even when I've tried that, I just don't pause and actually read it and like do that part of it. I just kind of glance at it and be like, yeah, I know what that says. And then I kind of pass over it. But if it, for whatever reason, sorry, I'm having a yawn. If it's on my mirror, it gets my attention. And I don't know if it's just like because it's, it blocks what normally I would be seeing on my mirror and it's something new and different and bright. But when it's on there, it gets my attention and I actually read it and I pause. And maybe because what I'm doing allows for that, right? I'm either brushing my teeth or I'm putting my makeup on, I'm doing some mindless activity that again, is stored in my subconscious that I can just do all this without, okay, I get this makeup and I do this step first and I do that step second, right? And while I'm doing those kind of mindful tasks, I can be reading through this and directing my mind to that thought. So I think that's genius. And they can be on your desk, they can be, strategically placed throughout the home besides like on your mirror or, beside the bed. So um, the sticky notes is, I think, a great tip. But the practice is just practicing the thought, right? Just being intentional about, I'm going to think this thought. I'm going to repeat this thought. I'm going to say this thought to myself. I'm going to just focus or redirect every time I notice that my mind drifts over there. I'm going to start drifting it back over there. And so it just is the intentional practice, 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 repeating it to yourself, reading it to yourself, saying it to yourself, whatever that looks like for you. And it can be different for every one of us, but we have to practice it, right? And so that's going to be part of that. And so just know that your brain is going to want to go back to the way it's always been thinking, because that's easy. And our intentional part here is where we direct our thoughts intentionally. And whatever you tell your brain to do, it'll do, right? Like if you ask it questions or you direct the focus, it it's still our brain. And we're still in control of it. So it will go in the direction that you point it. And so we just want to be intentional about that. And so this is the intentional thought creation. This should be a very exciting part of the process. But I do recognize that for some people, especially if, like I mentioned earlier, if you feel like you're not in control of your thinking, like that's the first step, right? Is just getting that control, taking that step to either do the thought audit or do the incremental check-ins and build the awareness around what are you thinking? Eavesdrop on your mind, right? Just get curious about what you're thinking. Just build the awareness, figure out what am I thinking? Because if you feel like it's happening to you, and absolutely it can feel that way, and that you don't have control of your thoughts, that's how you get it. That's how you regain that control. And every step of this is to reveal all the control that you do have over all of it. So it should be an empowering, and this part I think should be a very exciting step. But I do recognize that it can be challenging too. And so if it feels like, especially if you have something that is an autopilot thought that you've been thinking for a long time and your brain just is doing the reverting a lot, it can feel challenging. It can feel like this isn't working or this is impossible. And just know that it is working. Every time you stop and notice, it's working because that's the point of this is to notice, is to become aware, is to pause and get curious, right? And that just that simple step actually does change us. It changes us to the watcher. It changes our perspective just in that moment. So if that's only work, if that is the only work that you do, you are still changing. And that is significant. So for sure, give yourself credit for that. And then give yourself some grace and some compassion through this because it can be difficult work, right? And there can be things where we struggle to catch it for ourselves or we struggle to notice it for ourselves. And it takes more work or it takes more curiosity, takes more deep dives. And just know that's what us coaches are here for, right? Like even us coaches have coaches because we can't catch our own stuff sometimes. And it can be challenging, or we think we've got it and we haven't like actually got it because yeah, our brains are sneaky like that. And so we might find some surface level stuff and we have to get a little deeper or we think we have it and we think we have a new thought and it's just not producing the results that we want. So there's lots of different ways that this can lend itself to having a coach is definitely the most efficient and I can't think of the word, but it's not the best way because self-coaching certainly, and I do it, and that's what my coach teaches us to do is to coach ourselves through things. And so it's just it's a resource available to you. It's a benefit. That's all the benefits of having someone help catch these things for you, help see the things that you don't see. And so there's definitely that benefit there. But there is a ton of benefits to coaching ourselves, building that awareness, and having intentional thoughts because that's how we get to pick. That's how we get to direct. That's how we get to decide what our experience is in this life. So, intentional thought creation, go explore, use your imagination, and use the ladder thoughts, use the modifiers if that works for you. But just know that every time you're intentional, you are directing, right? You are setting the stage. You're not just existing, you're not just living a life of unconscious thinking and pre-programmed thoughts. You're actually being right, proactive and making change intentional. And that's how you get to decide all of it. So with that, I hope that you guys come up with some amazing thoughts. Use your imagination and use it for good, right? Because if you can use it for both, good or bad, there's no upside, right, to using it to worry or to create anxious thoughts. So use your imagination to come up with some creative thoughts and create the most amazing life for yourself. It's all available to you. So with that, I will see you again next week. Until then, happy intentional thinking.